Well, it's great for us to be together on this celebration of All Saints. And so when we think about All Saints, well, normally when we think about the saints, we think about those folks who are kind of the big names, you know, the Pauls and the Peters and the Johns. This church is named after St. Mary, so we think of the big names, you know, who went through so much to create the community and the faith that we rely on. And yet we know, at least you've been told, that All Saints is for everybody else, right? So everybody else that gets to kind of be part of this community, the rest of us. And so we hear that, and so we believe that. I mean, you believe you're a saint? See? We believe that, kind of. And so don't we still think in terms of, yeah, but they're the real ones, right? They're the real ones who have been they've been the real examples, and the rest of us are just kind of muddling through, right? And so we do the best that we can, but they're the real ones because they did such great things. I mean, they did so many powerful works of faith and obedience, and it's true. That's true. But I think it's helpful for us then to be able to step back and look at Jesus. Because if we think in those terms, it may be that we're cutting ourselves off from where it is that Jesus is really trying to take us. So what I'd like to do is just to kind of open ourselves to a little bit of what it meant to be a follower or a disciple of a rabbi during the time of Jesus. So, I mean, all boys, when they were growing up, wanted to be a rabbi, because a rabbi was that was the big thing. You didn't want to be a shepherd. I think shepherds are kind of cool, but they were really stinky and they were outside of town. They didn't want to. So you wanted to be a rabbi. That was the big deal. And so then the question is, how do you get to be a rabbi? So this is, sorry girls, this is guys only. And so then everybody, all of the boys want to go through this. And so then you go into this training program in order to be able to figure out if you can qualify for being a rabbi. And so you enter into what was their equivalent of elementary school. And so you go through that program. You're still living at home, and you're going through that program in order to be able to demonstrate that you've got the stuff in order to be able to be a rabbi. And so the curriculum was to memorize. So memorization was an important part of what it meant for them to be leaders, if you're going to know God's word, right? So elementary school, you were going to memorize the first 5 books of the Old Testament, right? So let me just, I don't have papers falling all over the place. So you're going to memorize the first 5 books in elementary school, right? I was working on coloring books in elementary school. They memorized the first 5 books, backwards and forwards. And so then as you got older, and if you're still in the running, then you go into junior high school. And so then the curriculum for junior high school is to memorize the rest of the Old Testament. The rest of the Old Testament. To memorize it. To know it backwards and forwards. so that if your mom or your dad asked you about a certain passage, you'd be able to know exactly where it was, right? So, what did you do by the time you graduated from junior high school? So clearly, the numbers of students that are qualifying begins to get smaller, right? And then you get to high school. And so now high school is the opportunity, so you're about 14, and you go to a rabbi. And now these rabbis have a long line of students that are applying to be studying under them. And so then the rabbi has to filter out, the ones with real promise from all of the rest. And so he spends the next years of high school going through what we would probably call law school. And so you know now, the presumption is all of the Old Testament, that you can quote it. If somebody gives you a verse, you can give them the rest of the chapter of whatever that is. And so now it's kind of like, how do you apply this? How do I apply this to daily life? So what is the Sabbath, and how far exactly can you walk? And what does it mean to cook? And what does it mean to start a fire? And how do we handle different animals? And how do we handle all of the sacrifices? And so that begins to be this kind of this interrogation between the rabbi and the student in order to be able to figure out who's really got it. Who's really got it? So that by the end, then the rabbi, if among the most promising of the students, the rabbi would say to them, okay, come follow me. Come follow me. And so that student then would be the disciple of the rabbi and would literally follow that rabbi wherever he went, whatever he did, including to the bathroom. Because there are regulations and rules about how you go to the bathroom, right? Everything. So the student goes every place with a rabbi in order to be able to learn how to live like a rabbi. And for those that didn't qualify, the rabbi said, go and ply your trade. That meant go back home, and whatever your dad is doing, probably their occupation, then go and do that for your livelihood. So it was the best of the best, the Ivy Leaguers, who got to be disciples, to take on the responsibility of following and the legacy of the rabbi. Now, let's think about Jesus. Who did he choose? So he goes along the seashore. Now, he may have met these people. We always assume that he didn't have a relationship with them. I don't know why we do that. He may have had a relationship and known them ahead of time, but he's walking along the seashore, and he says, Peter, come follow me. And he gets James and John and says, come follow me. Well, these are not the best of the best. I mean, they're fishing. They didn't make the cut. They didn't have what it took. They didn't have the diploma on their wall. These guys were, they were very limited in their potential. But Jesus says to them, you come follow me. And then he chooses a tax collector who is like a traitor. He's a sellout. He doesn't care about all of the things that the rabbis are traditionally teaching. Jesus chooses a tax collector to come and be with these other Jewish boys. And then he chooses Simon the Zealot, who is a committed political revolutionary. You know, it was said that if a tax collector and a zealot both went into a dark alleyway, only one would come out. Right? And Jesus chooses him to come and to be part of this community. What is he thinking? He's either the most screwed up rabbi ever, or he's got a very different idea about the kind of community that he's making. And what they've all got in common is the fact that apart from all expectation and all hope, what they've all got in common is that Jesus chose them. And so they drop whatever it is that they're doing. Matthew leaves behind his money counting table, and the fisher boys leave behind their nets. They drop the nets at the feet of Zebedee, the father, who now all of a sudden has to figure out how to run the family business. They leave it all behind because of the grace and the mercy of being able to be a part of this new kingdom. Now, that is just counterintuitive, to say the least, because we do believe, don't we, that God likes us because of the things that we do, that we're impressive because of the things that we've accomplished, how much we've gotten right. Where we haven't screwed up, where we see ourselves as qualified. But Jesus that's kind of like, it's completely upside down. It is completely upside down. It's not based on what we have accomplished. It's based on what they have received, apart from anything they've done. In Luke's Gospel, chapter 7, there's a woman who comes while Jesus is at a banquet. So the banquet is being put on by the Pharisees, right? And so they're watching him. And somehow there sneaks in this woman who has a very doubtful reputation. But somehow Jesus has touched her in some way. And so he's at the banquet table reclining, and she's just sobbing with tears pouring down her face. And she's so much that, you know, she's maybe embarrassed or something, so she takes her hair, which is scandalous, and rubs his feet with her hair and can't stop kissing him. And the religious leaders is just, they're beyond ballistic. I mean, they're just so offended. And Jesus must have seen the look on his host's face. And he says, "A moment, please. So when I came to your house, you didn't even offer me the courtesy of being able to wash my feet before I came in. She hasn't stopped washing my feet with her tears. You didn't offer me the kiss of fellowship or hospitality. She hasn't stopped kissing me since I've been here. And then this sentence that we should just I think we should just engrave it on the walls of our house. Because he says, those who have been forgiven much love much. Those who have been forgiven much love much. You know, we wonder sometimes, why it is that there's so little love in the world or in our relationships. What's the dam that keeps us, that keeps others from breaking out in love, lavish love for others? What is it? And maybe there's a hint here, this sense that we're all just kind of waiting, because we know in some place in the back of our hearts that we're owed something. And so we're waiting for somebody to meet the right standard. And if they meet the right standard, then I'll extend the courtesy of giving them my love. Well, it's no wonder there's so little love. Jesus turns it absolutely upside down. It is those who know that they are in need. It is those who know that they are not loving or lovable. It is those who know that their hearts are cement and rock. Those are the ones who are able to love, because they understand the meaning of the word grace. Grace. Something coming into our life that we just don't expect and we don't deserve. And as long as we think we expect it and we deserve it, we stay cold and hard. But it's this offering of invitation, of grace, of mercy, when we know ourselves. We know we don't deserve it. We're honest with the kinds of people we really are. And someone still loves us, even in spite of our own hypocrisy and bitterness and selfishness. Someone still loves us and goes to the extreme to offer us grace and mercy, acceptance and celebration. So we have to kind of cast about for different models of what it's like to be part of this kingdom of Jesus. So there's a story in the Boston Globe a number of years ago now there's an in-love young couple who were ready to get married, and so excited about the day. So they made all the wedding arrangements, and then made the arrangements for the banquet. And so they decided they were going to pull out all the stops. So there in Boston, there's a big downtown hotel, the Hyatt. And so they decided that's where they wanted to have their reception. All their family members and friends could come there. And so they go and they meet with the event coordinator, and they pick out all of the linens and the china that's going to be able to be used and what's going to be on the menu, and just kind of all of the wait staff and the band and all of the stuff that's gonna be part of this great celebration. And so they're very excited, and they look at the bill, and it's like, oh gosh, all right, but we can do this. And so they have to put down half, 50%, as a deposit. And so they do that, and so then they go home. And they start working on the guest list and who's going to get the invitations, and they get the printed invitations, and they sit down and they handwrite the address and the names on each of the invitations, and they got all of the invitations ready to go, and so they get ready to go and take them down to the mailbox, and the guy says, well, maybe we ought to think about this for a little while. And she says, what? What are you talking about? Think about this. We're ready to send out the invitations. And he says, yeah, I'm out of here. And so the wedding's called off. And so she goes through all of the logical things. I mean, she's furious, she's disappointed, cries a bucket, all of this stuff. And so she's got to unwind all of this stuff now, and tell her family and how embarrassing it all is. It's just awful. And so finally she has to go back to the event coordinator to talk to the banquet hall, and about their obligation for the hall. And she says, I apologize. We have the date set, but we can't go through with it. My fiance backed out, and so I got this mess, so we can't do it. And the event coordinator says, honey, she says, I understand. I've been through exactly the same thing, but we ain't giving you your money back. And she says, so you've got two choices. You can either eat it, get no money back, or you can go ahead with the event. She says, go ahead with the event. Who's going to come to this wedding banquet? I don't want to see his side of the family and my side of the family. It's all embarrassing. We don't want to do that. And so she says, it's your choice. And so she goes home and she thinks about it. She chews on it. She's so angry, furious. And so then, what do you do when something you didn't want to happen all of a sudden is going to happen? What do you do about that? And so she says, well, all right, so if I was to go ahead and do this, number one, I'd have to come up with some extra money. But number two, who would I invite? Who are the people that would come? And so she kind of went through her head, and she thought, the time that I felt most loved and cared for was 10 years earlier, when she had gone through kind of a real crisis. And everything had just been kind of taken away from her, and she ended up living at a homeless shelter. And that homeless shelter helped support her and provide for her in order to allow her to kind of get her feet under her so that she could kind of pull her life back together. And so she did. It's over 10 years she was able to put up, to develop a career, to save some money, to be able to do things that gave her a little bit more freedom. And so she said, that's what I'm going to do. And so she went back to that homeless shelter. And she said, hey, can we invite all of your guests, all of the people who are here, can we invite them all to be able to come to this banquet? And they said, well, our guests have never been in the Hyatt, but yeah, you can invite them. And so she did. And so the menu was chicken in honor of the former fiance. And there's this vision that I just love of all of these homeless folks who had sometimes been eating out of trash bins, who now all of a sudden were walking into the Hyatt downtown and greeted with people in tuxes and sitting at tables served chicken cordon bleu and listening to a band and dancing into the wee hours of the morning. It's a beautiful image of the kingdom of God. It wasn't about what they did, it's about what they received, the gift that was given. And if we wait around until we can finally have enough diplomas on the wall and enough good deeds to somehow impress somebody someplace, it's going to be a long and bitter fight. But the good news for us, if we can't accept it, the good news for us is the invitation is there with our name on it. The banquet is prepared. The gifts are pouring in. the opportunity to be able to receive abundance beyond anything we'd ever asked or imagined. To be able to be together as followers of Jesus in this crazy, crazy, crazy new kingdom. It's about what we've received, not what we do. And so on this All Saints' Day, this opportunity for us to challenge these misconceptions in our brains about our goals, about what it is that we're trying to do and accomplish in life, and who it is that we love, and why it is that we do that, and to be able to allow Jesus to just kind of do some mental heart surgery for us to set us free, and to really press in to this new reality of what is all saints. All saints. And to be able to be freed up to be his joyful, joyful, joyful people. Amen. One of the things that we do on All Saints is we often